Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of I Am Legion for Dying Light 1 and 2. My name is Jason, the creator, and I want to show you guys another update that I've done. That this one is specifically for the community. So some of the things that have been rolling in, thank you guys always, as always, for your feedback and awesome notes about what you're experiencing inside the world. I've been writing so much code lately that I don't get as much time as I'd like to test. So again, thank you guys so much for contributing that feedback. It really helps me move very quickly to fix the issues you're encountering. As always, if you're going to report a bug, especially on the Discord community, go ahead and add a save game as well, and that will allow me to, also any crash logs that you get inside your documents folder, but that will allow me to move much faster and replicate what you're seeing on your side and fix that issue, because I want the community to continue to build. I want more people on the mod and enjoying Dying Light 2 the way it should have been. So for this next update, I've got a pretty exciting one here. So first and foremost, two big things have been talked about for the last little bit, which is the ability to use the survivor sense. I know a lot of people have very specific leanings and feelings for using that survivor sense. I personally am not a big fan just because it feels kind of wall hacky, and so because of that, I usually try to stay away from it, to be honest. But what I've tried to do is go through and update the survivor sense. So the survivor sense you can see here on the left side. Let me actually just move this over. So here on the left side, I've added a ton of new features to the survivor sense. I apologize, in the wrong section there. So basically, if you open up the config file, please use the installation video and config video to figure out how to get access to this config. I'm going to continue to update those as new features come out, but for now, I think that one still works to carry on how to actually modify this config. But inside this config, I've added a ton of options for the survivor sense, and instead of disabling it, I think I have a new approach to the survivor sense that I think is more fair. And I know a lot of people have reported that they weren't able to see the sleeping zombies, or they weren't able to, when they're going inside interiors and doing quests, they weren't able to benefit as much because survivor sense has been turned off. Well, I wanted to address that and make that a little bit better for the community, and so I've gone in, I've created a new config that will go out for each difficulty, and so that will be coming back. It's just going to be a little bit more modified to make the time that you see them much shorter. The opacity, that kind of thing, will be much easier, or will be tuned in to where I'd like to have it, so that way it's not quite as wall hacky as it usually is. The standard is pretty rough. But I wanted to point out a couple of specific things here. So with this setting, once it goes out, you will have the ability to set a cooldown. So this is something that I'm also increasing for the different difficulties. So if you're mashing on that Q button and it's not working, that's because I'm adding a cooldown to the survivor sense. So you can't just, wall hack your way through an environment. Also, one of the things that will be changed is the ability to detect AI that are awake versus sleeping. So you actually have this one here that's for the sleeping ranges. So if they're asleep, I've got it turned up to where you can actually detect sleeping, but you're not able to as easily detect ones that are awake. So that makes it a little bit more, and you could reverse that if you wanted, for example. So if you're having a quest and you don't care as much about the ones that are sleeping, and you want to specifically highlight the infected that are crawling around the space, you can actually just go in here and flip these numbers. So the AI range are the ones that are awake. So in here, we could go in here and set this to 10, and then we could turn off all the sleeping ones. We could set that down to 1. And that will effectively set it to where you won't be able to actually see the ones that are sleeping until you're right up on them. And then the ones that are awake and patrolling the environment, you could actually pick those up inside the environment. Hopefully that helps with quests and makes it a little bit easier to navigate the space. Some of this I've also tried to set to a little bit more realism, so you also have this concept of height for your survivor sense. I've tried to make this to where this is very much lowered compared to the default, and I've tested this out in the world. I think I'm pretty happy with the balancing. Essentially, the thing is that I don't think you should be able to see through floors up and down inside of a building, unless you want to. So again, these are all set to config, so you can go in here, jack these numbers up if you want, and then you can look through the whole building if you like. But for my playstyle, I like to keep it as realistic as possible, keep those ranges lower, and so I'm leaving that up to for you guys to decide. Also for the loot, so I'll set up the exact same options for the loot. So if you're going through the world and you think it's a little bit too easy to find the different loots throughout, now you can use this to go in here and dial that in. I haven't gone by color. What I've done is just set overall for loot. There's a range, there's the height, so it will take a little bit more love to go and find those objects inside the world, and this should apply to both valuables and that kind of thing. Now, pointing to one that's below that, that's a little bit more important, I've also gone in and made this specific to icons as well. So when you use your survivor sense, certain icons will pop up for different things, and I've tried to break that apart and add a couple of descriptions there. But essentially, the range has been lowered overall for icons for most of the things in the world, including loot. Things like the hiding, so the large grass and everything, have also been updated, so that is not as obvious when you're moving through the world. I want that to be a little bit more difficult, and so that way you're not immediately finding all the grass. Plus, those icons kind of ruin some of the immersion as well. So for example, if you want to turn off those eye icons on the tall grass, you can actually just go in here, set this to 1. I wouldn't recommend setting all of these to 0.0 because I haven't tested those out. So at a bare minimum, maybe go in and set 0.1. And if you guys do happen to try 0.0, go ahead and give me a shout. Let me know that that works. That's always appreciated as well. Things like elements, like the fire, water, electricity that are related to probably quests, you can also turn those back on. I'm setting those to off because I hope you can see the fire and stay out of the fire. Things like entrances, so doorways and that kind of thing. If you wanted to be able to find those better inside the world, you could actually increase this number. The default is 20. I've dropped it to 10, make it a little bit less muddled when you use the sense. I mean, you see icons everywhere, and so really trying to balance some of these out so they get out of the way. Inhibitors as well, I didn't really understand why you would want to be able to very easily find those, considering most of the game is based around finding these inside the environment and actually working towards them. So because of that, I've dropped that down to 5 for Survivor. For the quest range, so the default is 20. I've left that at 15 for Survivor. What this should do is that if there are icons like go investigate this, go do this, those should stay closer to default. And so that should allow you to move throughout the world and investigate and find those quest items without losing that. If you want to increase this, by all means, go ahead and do so. You can set that to whatever you want and boost that to where you could actually find quests much further away. So to the next section, this one I'm excited about as well. This one is specifically because people have asked for stealth to come back. Personally, I really like this idea that in the daytime you have these zombies that flood the interiors, and the interiors are basically no-go zones. Like, you need to stick to the tops of the rooftops, you need to avoid zombies inside the space. But if you wanted to be able to go in here and change that, you now can. So underneath the spawn and density section, there is now this interiors day, interiors night section. And what I've done is set up a min and a max value for each difficulty. These are not paired directly to the easy, normal, and hard difficulties necessarily that your difficulty is setting. So they've gone through and they've kind of set some of these up to where they're based on zone difficulty. So some are actually just naturally balanced with how the story creators wanted it to be. So don't feel like necessarily this may work for some. You may be able to go change the difficulty in game and this affect these numbers, but from my testing I haven't really been able to conclude whether or not that's true or not. So you'll have to kind of determine for yourself whether or not that's actually working. For the different amounts, so a basic idea here is that during the day, if we wanted to say for any zone, and you can boost these up much higher. I've got them set to a standard of 5, 25, 10, 50, and 1575 for the day. And most of that is based off of people saying they want to be able to use stealth to move through the interiors. I hear you. I don't want to make it too much about my vision versus your playability. So what I'm going to do is that these numbers will be increased for Ultimate Survivor, and for the normal Survivor, they will be lowered down a little bit. And I'll show you here why that is here in a second. So I've done a lot of extensive testing for the interiors. I think I have a solution, and I'll show you guys that here in a second. But if you want to go in here and actually make these more diverse, what I would recommend is that because these are based on ranges, If you wanted to go in and actually make the world a little bit more interesting, some interiors empty, some interiors well populated, you could actually go in here and do something like 5 to 75. You could do 5 to 35. You could do 5 to 25. You could go down to 1 if you wanted, so that some interiors actually only have 1 zombie and other ones have 25 zombies. So it kind of falls on a range, and so that might make the world a little bit more interesting. I've tried to keep that somewhat balanced here while also keeping that difficulty. So those interiors, the idea is that as you're walking by them, they should activate now, and so those should start to pour down into the streets. So if you're fighting your way down the street or you're working with the PK to walk down through the streets, this should start to allow the interior zombies to move outward and actually come to the aid of the other zombies. They hear you, they see you, they smell you, they want to kill you. So the same is true of the night interiors as well, and basically what I've done is I've left those numbers very low, so that way I know that's the standards. Most people, because of the lore, they expect those building interiors to be empty, and so this leaves them a little bit more empty during the night. Personally, I will probably boost these numbers for my playthrough. I like more difficulty in general, but again, I leave that up to you guys to decide. Also, I've gone ahead and kind of set these other values that were already established up by open world day and open world night. Hopefully that helps with some of the notes so that you guys understand where those numbers are being applied. Okay, let's go ahead and launch the game so you guys can see some of these changes, and let's talk about stealth in the game. So basically, stealth has been one of those rolling things that, as the mod or the official game updates, the stealth for the mod actually gets drastically shifted every single time there's an update. And the reason for that is because behind the scenes numbers are changing, AI is getting better, and so every single time it feels like there's a new reason that the stealth's not working as we originally expected, and that comes with the territory. So I'm going to continue to balance that as time goes by. Again, that's one of those things that really only your feedback is really going to help with. The more you tell me, the better I'll understand what you need. And so again, make sure to drop me feedback on here. I have created a new section on the Discord for Patreon and supporters. Again, huge shout out for everybody that's contributing to the mod, and we'll use this as a good edge case. So we just had a crash. So the reason that these crashes are happening is more than likely one of these ranges got shifted while I was talking to you, and that caused the system to crash. If we go over here to the log and we pull up this log, most of the time it will not give you an actual error. So what I do most of the time is I go in here and find the line, but this is a perfect example of how to debug this for yourself. So if you go in here and type ERR, you can see here that this is what gave the issue. So actually it's because I changed the name. I had a typo and I actually went in there and changed the name. So this is very obvious. So what I'm going to do is that when the mod releases, I'll go in there and make that change. But for now, we'll go ahead and just change that back, add a D there, and hit save. So apologize for that. But this is how I've been using the the logs files to find out what's going on. Most of the time, it will tell you at the line and then what the specific value is that errored. And so because of that, it can be a great tool. Sometimes it doesn't give that though. So you have to do a lot more trial and error to figure out what exactly happened. But sometimes those logs come in handy. So let's go ahead and try this again. And I should have done that sooner just to show you guys what the logs and what this balance looks like. But as you start to go through and change these numbers, that can happen. So all of a sudden you set a value, all of a sudden the game doesn't launch into the save game. Most of the time it's because whatever value has been set here, maybe especially with the mins and the maxes, you found some new level of min and max that it can't go above that number. So I haven't fully vetted, the different ones to say, okay, if I go in here to these difficulties and I set this interior amount to 900, will that work? I don't know. I have no idea. But more than likely with the spawn system, based on what I've seen, what it will do is it will set up to where it tries to spawn that number into that area. And then as you kill them, it will continue to spawn more. And that's kind of how that ends up working out, is that it's based on proximity. And so as you kill some, you'll end up getting more and more and more spawning into that area. So you'll kind of know, but please just make sure to let me know if you've modified these values before you report that in, just because that'll be harder for me to debug and understand what's going wrong if I don't know what's been changed. So here's an example of an interior. And I did a lot of testing here to find out. Some of the users were reporting that if you went in here and did a stealth kill, that it would immediately wake everyone up. So that's what I balanced for. So you can see now that if I go in here and do a kill, he may wake him up just from that ragdoll issue. I don't think it's actually reporting that. I don't think it's actually causing sound events, but that's kind of funny. So you can see now that the interiors will actually maintain your ability to go through and stealth kill these guys, where you don't have to worry about waking them all up. What you do need to be worried about, though, is actually causing sound or accidentally hitting one of these other zombies. So if we go in here and let's get one that's closer, and I'll show you, you can see here, looks like something actually got upset with my numbers here. The icons seem to be working, but also from my quick testing there, it looks like I've messed with the outline system as well. So it's always fun. Another thing to test is that I've found out that some of these values are actually being set based on difficulty. And so because of that, as you switch through the two, you can actually get different results. But it looks like for now, and so I'll try to fix that issue really quickly on this video and show you what that looks like, because that was supposed to be part of this video. So we can see here we have a cluster of 3, and if I go here and do a takedown on this guy, kill him, that actually worked. All right, well, good. Because normally the issue is that when you kill them and they fall, they're actually hitting and tripping a proximity sensor closer to these guys, and that's causing the whole world to wake up. So if we go in here and potentially we might actually have a bug here, because the survivor sense is not working as well. And so that's interesting. I'm going to switch over to a different environment really quick. Of course, this would happen in minute like 30. So let me try this again. So we go in here. There we go. And that effect is working on these guys. Very interesting. I don't know if that one interior is bugged or what might have happened. Let me try this again. Oh, because I switched it. I forgot while we were on this call. I actually flipped it. So this is where I have flipped the values so you can't see the sleeping zombies. But if I go here and I wake him up, we can now see him walking. So again, while I was talking, not a bug, feature. But you can see here that we can go in here and wake these interiors up properly now. They will come after the player and they'll continue to group and do all the things that they would do in an open world. But you should be able to go through and stealth kill these guys a little bit easier now. Sorry for the bug earlier where they were all kind of attacking the player. I have found that this is going to be a proximity thing. So if you do go in here and try to stealth kill these guys and they fall very close to another one, they will wake everybody up. So they'll immediately scream and that will cause everybody to kind of wake up and come after the player. But it looks like that's actually working pretty well now. So welcome back to the takedown. You should be able to go in here and perform this without waking everybody up. And I'm going to continue to balance this. So we got that issue worked out. And so as we go through, I'll continue to balance this and update it so that it's more fun for the players. So I'm going to switch that back though to where kind of the idea is, and maybe I'll go switch this back really quick and show it. And while I'm here, let's go ahead and boost these numbers up as well to see what they look like. So let's try for like hard interiors. Let's do like 125. We'll bump this up. for the minimum amount as well. That should definitely flood that area. We'll do this at 100, and we'll do this at 40, and this one we'll do at 12 and 45. And then let's flip these values back again. So let's go in here and say, where is it? Sleeping. So the sleeping ones we turn down. And essentially it's not turning it off as much as it's just lowering the range. So let's go in here and we'll set this to like the default, which is 20. And then we'll set the AI range to like 4. And so this should be closer to what you guys should see. Well, I'm going to turn this actually down to the mod's new default, which is 10. And then this will also not detect enemies behind you. So this is also meant to be a little bit more realistic. So as you do a gaze forward, you're actually looking forward, you're detecting forward, and so you're not actually going to get ranges behind you. Again, hooked up to the config though, so if you want to turn that back on, you can. But something I want to continue to balance and make that a little bit more challenging so you're not just using wall hacks to quickly check out the entire environment. Let's go ahead and launch this back up and we'll see if those ranges, now that was for day, correct? Yeah, so for the day amounts. Additionally, I'm going to be doing another upcoming video here soon talking about some of the things that are being released specifically to the Patreon. So again, thank you for all my Patreon supporters. We've had a couple more join the team this week. I appreciate that support. I'm going to start creating Patreon specific content that if you join and you support, you know, it's a thank you from me. And one of those will include having access to all the new custom outfits and gear. And so if you've wanted to be able to get a hold of those a lot easier, you should be able to. And you can see here that they're a little bit more filled. I'm guessing that these really do have a limit to them, but you can see here that that does look a lot more populated than it was earlier. But if we go ahead and do this, you can see that we can see the sleeping ones. And if we wake them up, it ignores him and he woke everybody up. So as they're going, the zombies are letting out kind of different moans and grunts, and those have been also set up to where they alert the other zombies. And so the longer you leave these guys alive, the more likely they are to wake up everybody else. So that's also kind of an incentive in the mod to get in there and take these guys out quickly if you have bows and arrows, throwing weapons, that kind of thing, but to silence the one that wakes up before he wakes up the entire building. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining. I'm actually, one more thing I'm going to do really quick while I'm on the call. At this point, you guys have seen the gist here, but what I'm going to do really quickly is also turn up these values so that you can see what these would look like if you want to go in here and increase these ranges even more. The default is 20, but we can go in here and start to double down on some of these things. So we'll turn up the opacity, we'll turn on the duration, or we'll turn up the duration kind of thing. And then we'll also increase the range on AI. We'll also increase the range on the height. And then we'll also do the same for the sleeping ones. Matter of fact, we'll set the sleeping ones even higher. And icon range, we'll also set to 60. And let's just see if we can break it. So I'm going to go in here and try to see if we can cause anything to happen by manipulating these before I get off the line with you guys. So that way you guys are aware of what works and what doesn't work. Save some time. So what I'm doing is I'm just kind of dragging these back in each time for any updates that you guys get. So for yours, this is where I have the entire extracted mod. You could do it this way if you wanted to, but an easier way to do it is to either using WinRAR or WinZip or 7-zip. You should be able to modify those files inside the zip files. This doesn't always work. You do need to add those SCRs to where they will always default to where you can use Notepad or Notepad++, whatever text editing tool you use. And then as far as the actually, if it doesn't work, if it's not saving, most of the time that's because it's a temp file issue. And so you'll need to actually extract the config to your desktop, open it up there, make those modifications, and then drag it back inside the zip file or it's actually a .pack, but once you register that with WinRAR, 7-zip, whatever it is, it'll treat it just like a normal archive. So let's go ahead. It's now going on 25 minutes, so we'll go ahead and shorten this up here in a second. But we should be able to go in here, assuming these guys spawn. I have noticed that it is taking a second more to spawn these guys in. Oh, did it turn them back off? Oh, you can see that it's doing you can see the loot items all the way over there. So those are working. So we are able to see the loot system from much further. We can now see the AI. It looks like it is doing, looks like my interior changes are no longer working, which is fun. I'm going to have to look at those again. But it does look like those interior changes are not happening in the sense that if I jump away from here, watch this. And I don't know if this is because I'm going inside of a safe zone or what the issue is there, but they're doing a lot of this to kind of save on computing power needed. And so you can see that it's actually that LOD. And I've been fighting that LOD system, level of detail system, for a while, where that distance is really just shortening the hell out of the spawns and everything in the game. And you can actually see by turning the system up, you can actually start to get a better picture of what that LOD is actually doing. So let's see if it's doing that other cell. See, it wasn't even, and that might have been a distance thing. So maybe if we go in there and set that to 100, it'll let you see even more. But technically now, if you want to use this to go, wall hack all the way through the environment, you can do so. So thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate all the feedback and support. As we continue to progress this, I'll always try to listen to your guys' feedback and figure out how to balance this mod out so that you guys are getting the best experience as newcomers to the mod. Please give me your feedback. Let me know how you feel about it. And I look forward to hearing from you guys next time. Thank you guys so much. Look forward to talking.